Hello to all of our Grand Rapids and West Michigan family. We are the Cohens, at least two out of the three Cohens. My name is Shannon Cohen,
And I am Darrell Sr.
and we are excited to be with you for a Taste of Soul Sunday. Man, I wish we were in person down at 111 Library, but we are virtual to stay safe. And we're just really honored that the library asked us to share our stories and to really invite all of us into a conversation about what happened to us these past 12 months. What happened and how did we navigate pandemic and COVID as a family? So we are excited to meet you and to hear your stories of collective wisdom sharing and what helped you to stay strong as family. So we have a little presentation to share, especially since only two of our three-part harmony could be here today in person. So we are going to share a presentation so that you can fully see who really has the magic, right? People don't even come checking for us. It's really all about Deuce. So hello and meet our son Deuce, who is 7. He just turned 7 2 weeks ago. He is a first grader. And together we own a business, one of which is Tough Skin, Soft Heart. So here's some fun facts about us. We have been together doing life together, this thing called life, like Prince said, for 14 years. And we are transplants. I am from the great city of Detroit. Shout out to all the fellow Detroit born folks in the building.
And I am from Pontiac, and Detroit is actually a suburb of
Ah,
Pontiac,
this is a running joke
both
in
from the
our
east side of the
family.
state.
And we have one son, and we don't have any biological family here.
Nope.
And so I felt it. I think we both felt the fact that while we have family, we're so thankful for friends that we claim as, and we are grateful to have in our lives as family, like going 6 months without seeing our biological family. I felt that.
Yeah, it was rough. Thank God for platforms like Zoom where we can and video chat where we can still see our family, but it was difficult to not be able to touch them and to know that all that the nation had going on and how everybody's life was kind of changed in an instant, what felt like an instant,
Mhm.
was enough stress in itself. But so glad that our family has navigated it well, and that hopefully we're on the decline
Yes.
and on the other side of this pandemic.
So I have a question for you all. When did COVID-19 become real to you and your family? I think there was a period of time, especially toward the end of 2019, where we were hearing about it and we were aware of it. But the date for us, I think that COVID got real was March 9th, because that's when school said, hello, here are your blessings. You are responsible for teaching them for the rest of the year.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Our church closed.
Yep.
So March 9th was like Easter weekend. And that's when it got real, at least to us. And so I think, this slide really speaks to me, because I think while we gratefully, thankfully, we as a three-part harmony did not contract COVID, we definitely lost family members to COVID. I felt like rapid fire in the beginning. And we both felt this stretch. I mean, everybody was home. Deuce, we were homeschooling while we were working, while we were running a business. We had to reconfigure our home. I don't know if that's been any of your journey too, to figure out how do we make workspaces that flow with each person's needs and personalities.
And also only having one child that was 6 years old at the time and couldn't really grasp everything that was going on, just knowing that, okay, I'm home from school now and now I'm learning on the computer. How do I continue to stay engaged as a parent of a student and keep him engaged and still do my job and still be present for the family and try to keep life as normal as possible for him?
So take a look at this slide as some of the emotions that we've captured. I think if we were all honest, we felt one or more of these over the past 12 months. And so, really, today, our hope is that we can share some snippets from our journey, at least over the past year, that may be a source of inspiration, maybe a source of laughter, just even a source of, that was us too, as we all continue to navigate uncertainty and disruption in the way it showed up in our lives. And hopefully, we can emerge stronger together from the things that we're able to share. So, I'm so glad that you talked about quarantining with our son, because I think of us as, well, at least I think medical science thinks of us as older parents, because I was 36 when we had Deuce. And I remember them putting that AMA, advanced maternal age, on all of my paperwork. And so the first 12 weeks of COVID, so you have to think, being 6 and quarantining with 40-year-olds is not easy. I wish he was here to tell his own story, but I'll never forget, we were doing learning, and then Deuce was like, yo, what time is recess? And I was like, oh, like I was already doing cafeteria lady. I would do more of the literature arts, the writing, the reading, and you are the math and science mastermind. And so he would be upstairs with me for half the day, and then would go downstairs with you.
Right.
And we didn't think about recess.
We didn't. And he did really well for the first 10 weeks. Like, he was okay. Like, all right, this is life. And I get up, I eat breakfast at home, I do school in my pajamas. I, can go back and forth between my room and other rooms in the house. And we really didn't see the loss for that interaction that 6-year-olds have when it comes to physical play and being able to be free and be outside. So about week 11, that all changed.
Yeah, he was like, I'm done. I need to see people that are my age. Where's my generation? Where are they at? And so his question about where is recess prompted us to start going for walks. We started walking, literally, we started walking even before he had enough. But I think he got tired of just walking with just our 3-part harmony. And so we started going to Ottawa Hills track, which is the high school track, is in our neighborhood. So we would walk from our house to the track and back home is 3 miles. Well, we would walk from our house to the track, walk a mile, and then go home. And that was 3 miles. And it was beautiful because we were able to be socially distanced, but to be in community. We would run into people from our church. We would run into kids his own age, and just seeing kids made his whole spirit lift.
Yep. We were able to, once the weather was consistently warm enough, for him to take his bike and ride his bike through the neighborhood and ride his bike on the track, and so it was good.
And you taught him how to ride his bike over pandemic.
Yep. So he is now fully functional, 2 wheels, training wheels not needed, and confident that he can go up and down the sidewalk without running on people's grass.
Right. Right. I think the other thing that we started to do was to really enjoy parks in our community. Both of us, we didn't grow up in communities where parks were well resourced. There were sometimes parks where there were slides, there were the chains for slides or swings. Specifically in my neighborhood, at the end of my block, there was a park, but it was dilapidated. Unfortunately, it wasn't well resourced. And so I remember vividly, there would be the chains for the swings, but no seats. And my mom just didn't feel safe with us going up to the park. And so I think some of that trickled over into how we weren't accessing like parks locally, but that changed even in pandemic. We started to really embrace and love going to Ken O'Shea Park, and Deuce is like an outdoorsman, like for real. Like, we have had to grow in that, but that child just takes to like wilderness play like we were born,
Yeah. He'll take and hop off his bike and run and play in the leaves, and oftentimes we have to tell him, come back on the trail.
Right.
Like, it's time to go. You spend enough time with sticks and branches and digging in the dirt. Now we got to finish our walk.
And so because of Deuce, we got outside more. We actually went to the beach more than we've ever gone before. And we even went to county beaches that were beyond Grand Rapids. And I have never spent so much time outdoors before, and realized that I loved it. And so I think 2 of the things that I took away from just this. It wasn't all bad.
Right.
It wasn't all bad.
It wasn't.
And I think Deuce has taught us in this space to create space for joy, even in pandemic. That's one of the things I think we've learned as a family is to create space for joy. Like there were so many things that were taking our breath away, like taking that could take away our joy, but getting outdoors every day and recognizing that the outdoors belongs to us and reclaiming outdoor spaces that we belong there, our bodies belong there was healing actually.
Still is.
So yeah, now we go outside. This was just even a few months ago as it started to get cold, and we've appreciated spaces like the Piazza at Studio Park and just making those our own. I think something else we recognize because this summer, I heard Dr. Sean Ginwright speak, and he said something that just continues to stay with me. He was like, this is a nation caught between trauma and transformation. And I think we definitely experienced that as we walked our family and ourselves through the atrocities connected to the murders of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor. And, we can continue. We need to say their names.
Yes. And, as a Black man in West Michigan and in Michigan and in the United States, you know, the things that happened this summer are not new to us. It is something that is always with us, that is always playing at some part in our minds and in our spirits. So it's not something that we were shocked by. It's something that was another reminder of how much work we have to do as a people. And
And that's
that,
a human people. That ain't us.
yeah,
But that's just the pervasiveness of systemic racism and institutional racism all around us and the impact to us as people.
and so, that in combination with pandemic made it for a interesting but season of unexpected growth in that area between our family and just having conversations with our son regarding what was going on in the nation, uh, the different views that people had, some of the anger that was being displayed publicly. And it forced us to have that conversation earlier than we would like to with our son about race relations and understanding that all people may not have your best interests in heart and you may not have done anything wrong, and to just be aware and to be conscious of understanding that everybody doesn't see life the way that you do.
I never forget that he asked us. I remember, I don't know if you remember, he was like, why does Trump hate us? I
Yeah.
mean, he asked us some difficult questions, and I think that it's, often, and I'd be interested to hear what your experience has been with your children or community children that you're in their life, but navigating your own grief, navigating the ways in which, you know, just murder, right? Just loss of life, and then the judicial system not being set up to or really being set up to get the outcomes that it gets. Let's just be honest. And so walking him through that as we were still navigating all of these layers of disruption, pandemic, turbulence, we were starting to see swells of activism as as people realized and we started to advocate for the quality, the our right to live, that Black Lives Matter. And so I took this picture when you were talking to Deuce because it pained me. So this was actually a very painful day of having a conversation with him
Yeah.
about Ahmaud Arbery. Like he was just
Yeah.
outside running. And I remember us because we had started going outdoors a lot and just starting just that fear of like, where can we go? And is this safe? And
Right.
just
And
all
I
of
think
that.
I think this was the day that we decided we want to control the narrative that he's hearing regarding what's going on in the nation and perception. And we wanted to make sure that we addressed it with him and started conversations with him before he started hearing it in public and seeing it on TV screens and all throughout social media, that it was important that our voice be the first voice that he hears relates to that he could be open and honest and we can see where he's at mentally And it was very challenging of how do I condense this conversation and break it down in a way that a 6 year old could understand, but not be afraid, not be
Mm-hmm.
overly anxious or afraid.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was very challenging. It was very challenging for myself to how do I how do I not be so angry that he's fearful at having these kind of conversations? Not that I was mad at him or mad for him bringing it up, but just the situation itself and understanding that my 6 year old can no longer be innocent in this area. And that is something that we still wrestle with. It's something that doesn't really go away. And
Mm-hmm.
parents of children of color, black children of color, I'm sure you could identify with those emotions where every day, now we don't know, every day he has a different question that will push us with race relations and the state of the country and everything that happened with the election. So it's wonderful that he's open and he's willing to share that with us and what's going on in his mind, but it continues to challenge us. How do we continue to keep those lines of communication open, but be honest?
So one of the things that we did, I think one of the best gifts we ever purchased for Deuce was the Because of Them We Can box. If you have not looked into that for your child, man, get it. It is the gift that keeps on giving. We bought it when he was 5 and we've just kept the subscription going because we didn't want to wait for trauma or traumatic moments to talk. We wanted to make conversations about equity and inclusion normative in his life and starting to get him active. How do you start to teach activism to your child? So part of one of the ways we did is with voting. We talked a lot about voting this year, and the city of Grand Rapids placed these branded voting boxes in multiple communities. So there was one within walking distance of us. So we used recess to walk to the one that was at the Ottawa Hills Library just outside of there. We also had the opening of the Southeast Market with Alita Kelly and Kara DeWitt. And we had given to their campaign when they were doing crowdfunding with community. And so we had a chance to go and shop at the market before it opened to the public. So Deuce and I went in September. We walked to the market, kept that same culture of our walking, and he was able to go meet with both owners to see the store. We talked about the importance of he learned about food apartheid. Just it was powerful, just powerful. And y'all, he is like their biggest fan. He was like, "Can I invite them to my birthday party when he turns 7?" Like he rides for the Southeast Market, and that brings us a lot of joy. I think even this watching Jingle Jangle as a family was
Refreshing.
dope.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was really refreshing to see a Christmas movie that not only centered black people, but every aspect of the movie, the production, the directing, all of that centered around people of color and black people. And it wasn't a story of trauma or horror. It was a beautiful story.
Mm-hmm.
So that was refreshing, especially around the holidays, to give us that much needed break and to kind of get us into that holiday Christmas spirit.
Yeah, to see, Black people as inventors, as a family unit, to see them as business owners and part of a community. I think it's textured hair, like all of those things, I think connects to who we are as a family. And I think the last thing that we want to share as what helped us to navigate this pandemic as a Black family was helping Deuce to discover new talents and passions. I remember when I have a sister who has homeschooled our nieces and nephews through high school. And I used to think that's not for us. I think we both used to say that's not for us. That's not going to be our journey. Little did
Right.
we know
Right.
we would homeschool in kindergarten. And I think part of learning and doing that is we discovered gifts that Deuce has. Like this brother is, I think it's generational, but I think it's also him. He loves to recycle things.
It's the simple things. It's the simple, like you see here, the making a car out of a box and
Hmm.
scooting around the kitchen and down the steps, and that's what brings him joy. The simple stuff.
We learned that he really loves painting. So that became our weekend vibe. We would go and buy these dollar pieces from various art stores and paint. And we also did a robotics class. Thank you to GR Kids. A lot of times we'd be stuck like, what can we do? You know, what's something that we could do that he would
Right.
enjoy, that we can break up the monotony and, not let the weight of being in pandemic bother him. So we took a robotics class.
Which was really cool. I wasn't sure how much he was going to get into it, but they taught the class really well, and he got to see something that he produced and built with his hands. And so it was awesome. It was awesome.
I think the other piece is we wanted to use this time to teach Deuce about the business and to invite him into the work that we do, because we know that gifts often flow through families. You could probably look at your children and see some of the gifts that you have, and they have gifts that are either adjacent to that or reflective of that or the next level of that. So he always likes to draw not just on the greeting cards that we send out to family, but on the envelope. Deuce will draw over all of it. So we said, well, let's introduce that to your class curriculum. And so he drew a card, and I know this picture isn't really as clear as we like, but we took one of his designs that he drew for a family friend who was graduating from college, put that on the card with some of my words, and put it into stores. And his cards were featured in an area magazine. And we also came up with a line of cards because he told me once, he was like, Mama, you don't have any cards for me. You don't have any cards for little boys. And I was like, you're right. And so he helped to be the inspiration for our greeting cards for for young princes. And this was in our catalog for our fall winter line for 2021. I guess the last piece I think that we should talk about, and then we will transition to, I don't know if there'll be a chat function or Q&A function, but how do you find time for your own relationship? So you have all of the other hats that we wear, and just finding time for us to not lose sight of us. And I think we kind of figured it out through having second Saturday date nights, but we didn't start off that way. I would say
Mm-mm.
maybe like late summer. I don't
Yeah,
know. I
yeah.
don't know when
First,
it
first
started.
it started out with, just once we were able to get Deuce in the bed and, carving out specific time to communicate and connect, non-business related. So for
Mhm.
us to watch a funny show or uh, just sit down and talk, that's kind of how it started. And it's kind of like, yeah, we kind of miss this here.
Mhm.
We're together all the time. We're around the house most of the day with Deuce. And so it was good to get back to that, to say we're just going to have time just for us.
So there's another family that we've quarantined with, and their 15-year-old daughter, they are like the siblings that Deuce didn't know he wanted, but he's so glad that he has. And so she's also into arts and crafts, which has been really great. He'll come home with things they've made out of pine cones or just all types of things. So he would go hang out with them on a Saturday afternoon, and then we would have our date night. Now, Michigan, has been open and closed. Sometimes that meant just we've done takeout and came back and took naps, right? Like just real talk, like just tired, or I just think it was good for us to have moments where I'll never forget something that TD Jake says. He says, if you're not careful in your marriage, you have to have the business of a marriage and then the romance of a marriage, and you need to maintain both. Don't get into a ditch either way. And
Mhm.
so I think under pandemic, it's easy to get caught up in the business of the marriage and to lose sight of the romance of a marriage. And so figuring that out and kind of creating space for that. Sometimes we would go for walks.
Yeah. Sometimes it was
Mhm.
at our own pace and not have to have our head on a swivel looking for where Deuce has ran off to in the
Mhm.
woods. But, being able to just go to the park and admire nature from an adult perspective.
Mhm. And so this is one of our photos from one of our just us going for a walk. And then I think the other thing that we did is we actually went to a pandemic wedding. We had a cousin that got married, and you would have thought it was like the Oscars. It was like the first time we had been out in the fall. It was this fall, and everybody had on masks. We just took off our masks to take a photo, but that was fun, and just that was like the first time we had really done something for real without Deuce.
Kind of felt a little odd too, because it's like when you go almost a whole year without gathering with other people and then you get in this space with other people, it's kind of like, well, what do I do? I want to hug, I want to, but all I can do is wave, but that's kind of awkward. So, but it was nice. It was a nice change of pace for us.
And I think the last thing that we have done and we've invested in is Kev on stage. You probably follow him too. I love to laugh. I think medicine is, laughter is good like medicine. And so we started to go to the keep your distance, socially distanced comedy shows that he would produce online. And D is the techie. So he would figure out how to put it from our phone and project it onto our TV in our bedroom. So it felt like we were going to a comedy club every second, and his actually were second Friday. So this was kind of that example of good night, dudes, we love you. And at 10 o'clock, sleepy and all, we were tuning in to the socially distanced comedy show. So we just want to say thank you. Thank you all for being with us. I hope that you've heard something in our experience that either affirms what you've navigated, helped you to remember that we're stronger than what we often think we are, and how important it is to invest in our families no matter the season.
Thank you.
See y'all later.